Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to synthesize multiple reports, historical data, and legal documents to really reveal the complex machinery operating beneath the surface of the world's most famous online storefront. I mean, we all know exactly what it feels like to just click a button and have a package magically appear on our doorstep the very next day. It's incredibly convenient, right? But how does that actually happen? What is the mathematical, logistical, and frankly, the human reality required to sustain that kind of unbelievable speed? Well, today, we are going to map out that entire equation. So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The frictionless storefront, 2. The delivery arms race, 3. The labor churn, 4. Rise of the robots, and finally, 5. The monopoly allegations. Let's just dive right in. All right, part 1, the frictionless storefront. To really understand this company, we have to go all the way back to the beginning to see how consumer convenience literally became their foundational philosophy. Think back to 1995. The site was gray, super text-heavy, pretty standard for the early web, honestly. But as their ambitions grew, they started introducing tabs in 1998 to organize all their expanding categories. Then in 2000, designer Anthony Biles created that iconic smile logo, which was brilliant because it visually connects A to Z. And by 2015, they had fully adopted a sleek, minimalist, responsive design. Every single one of these refinements was engineered for one purpose: to make buying as frictionless as digitally possible. And that absolute obsession with frictionless speed defined their early years. It actually culminated in a massive game changer. They patented one-click ordering. By legally protecting their ability to totally bypass those clunky, multi-step shopping carts that everyone else was using, they carved out a virtually insurmountable market position. Think about it. They didn't just build a store. They engineered a way to remove the entire concept of waiting from the digital shopping experience. Which brings us to part 2, the delivery arms race. Now, you can't have instant digital gratification unless the physical world can move just as fast. The result of that? Well, get a load of this number: 500 million. According to supply chain reports, that is the staggering number of packages their Primaire service is aiming to deliver annually by drone, and they want to hit that before the end of this decade. It is just a breathtaking scale of aerial logistics. So to actually hit that wild target and achieve sub-30-minute deliveries, they are aggressively scaling their new drone technology. They're heavily launching the MK30 drone in 2026, and the specs are pretty wild. It weighs 83 pounds, can carry packages up to 5 pounds, and it cruises at 73 miles per hour. It operates at an altitude of about 200 to 300 feet, and then it ultimately drops parcels from about 13 feet in the air. Operating out of dozens of these same-day fulfillment centers, these drones are quite literally pushing the physical boundaries of how fast a product can travel from a warehouse shelf right to your backyard. Okay, moving on to part 3, the labor churn. So the obvious question is, how does a company maintain this relentless, ultra-fast pace on the ground? Well, the answer reveals a pretty staggering reality. The annual turnover rate in these warehouses sits at roughly 150%. Just let that sink in for a second. The company cycles through more people each year than its entire baseline employment. In fact, reports note that 70% of new hires end up leaving within just 90 days. Now, you might think management would be absolutely panicking over this, right? But leaked internal documents suggest this high turnover is actually somewhat by design. See, the company tracks 2 different types of attrition. There's regretted attrition, those are the workers who leave voluntarily, and then there's unregretted attrition, workers who are intentionally fired. It's estimated that a full 1/3 of that massive turnover is unregretted, basically acting as a planned filter to continuously weed out the bottom tier of performers. When you take that math and apply it globally, the numbers become just astronomical. Analysts estimate that between 2015 and the end of 2024, the retail giant may have fired or laid off nearly 5 million people. Critics heavily argue that burning through millions of employees like this is a fundamentally unsustainable model. And frankly, it's raising some very serious internal concerns documented in those leaked reports. The company is reportedly worried that they could quite literally run out of employable people in certain geographic areas. And that impending labor crunch takes us directly to part 4. Rise of the robots. Facing this unprecedented labor churn and looming worker shortages, the company is pivoting extremely hard into an automation arsenal. Now, they already utilize nearly 750,000 robotic systems, but the tech itself is shifting.
They're moving away from robots that just slide shelves around on the floor to advanced systems like Sparrow, which is a robotic arm for hyper-repetitive picking tasks, and even Digit, a full-on humanoid robot built for processing totes. They are actively trying to engineer the human element right out of the equation.
The motivation here really just boils down to a simple cost comparison. Think about it. A human worker requires competitive wages, they need benefits, and eventually they face physical burnout or they turn over. The Digit robot, on the other hand, currently costs about $10 to $12 an hour to operate. But here is the real kicker. As they scale this technology, they project the operational cost of that humanoid robot is going to drop to just $3 an hour. So for corporate management, automation looks like the ultimate solution to surviving a 150% turnover rate. Finally, let's zoom out to Part 5, the monopoly allegations. So this incredibly optimized, high-speed machine is now facing its biggest existential threat yet. The Federal Trade Commission, alongside 17 state attorneys general, has filed a massive lawsuit. To be absolutely clear here, we're just impartially unpacking the claims made in these legal documents. The regulators allege that the company illegally maintains a monopoly through a series of coercive strategies. They claim the company punishes sellers for offering discounts on other sites, forces them to use costly fulfillment services to get that coveted Prime status, charges fees that can eat up nearly 50% of a seller's revenue, and even biases search results with paid junk ads.
The FTC is taking an incredibly aggressive stance here. John Newman, who is the deputy director of the FTC's Bureau of Competition, summarized their legal argument directly. He stated, Amazon is a monopolist that uses its power to hike prices on American shoppers and charge sky-high fees on hundreds of thousands of online sellers. Basically, regulators are arguing that the sheer scale of this logistical machine, the exact same scale that enables the drones and the one-click buying, now actively harms the businesses that rely on it and ultimately the consumers buying from it.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought. When you consider the almost magical convenience of one-click shopping and 73-mile-per-hour drone deliveries, but you stack that against the harsh realities of 150% labor churn and massive federal monopoly lawsuits, what is the true price of free and fast delivery? The next time you hit that buy button, just take a second to consider the massive, complex equation of digital engineering, human labor, robotic scaling, and market dominance that actually makes that delivery possible. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and keep asking the big questions.